Before we start the podcast, I just want to talk to you guys about Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, and let me explain why. First of all, it's free, so you can get it anywhere, anytime, costs no money. Second of all, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, whatever device you choose. As well as that, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast too with no minimum listenership. That means a nobody podcast like mine can make money off of sponsorships. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So if you haven't tried Anchor or you want to start a podcast and haven't tried it yet, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started.
You're listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast, hosted by Dylan Dillo Smith, Midwestern Ontario one and only MMA podcast, where we interview MMA fighters and voice actors like Sergeant Frank Woods.
What is up, guys? It is Dillo, and welcome to another episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. We are on episode 12. I am particularly excited for this one, mainly because of the main card and what we're going to be talking about, because this fight had a lot of history behind it, and we'll get into that in a bit. But I wanted to talk about one thing first. First things first. A lot of you that are following will notice that I uploaded a bonus episode kind of on Wednesday talking about a completely different topic. It was non-MMA related. I said this last episode that I was going to do something like this, or at least start every Wednesday. These are going to come out. Depending on when I record them, I might have them preset to come out around Wednesday, 7 a.m., or they might come out around a little later on Wednesday, but they will be coming out every Wednesday. And what they are is just a little mini podcast, might turn into a longer one, just of me taking little topics I want to talk about and talk about them essentially. And well, I actually had an idea where I'd be getting friends on and other people on to just kind of talk about different topics, whatever we want to talk about, whether it's like video gaming, sports, politics, pop culture, whatever you want to talk about, whatever I want to talk about, whatever they want to talk about. I just feel it would be much better with a second person. But I did enjoy the first episode. I actually talked about quite the topic, quite the article that I found. Well, not that I found, I actually was involved in getting this girl taken out and investigated. So it was an interesting episode to say the least. But if you want a podcast that's not MMA and you are not interested in cage fighting or anything combat sports related, then go check that one out, because that's more for people who just want to listen to like random shit or just little topics here and there. Just kind of me shooting the shit. That's just more for someone who wants a feeling of just hanging out, with the boys or with me. That's for anybody who's not interested in this. But anyway, enough about that. Let's get into this episode. So the first half, we got a lot to talk about. Couple things for the news. We will be getting into as always, we'll be getting into the fight night card of last night. In the second half, as we always do. But there is some news that we got to talk about. Some news from a little bit back, and just stuff that I have been kind of holding off the last few episodes I haven't talked about and I want to talk about. Plus a couple of, news articles and stuff. Well, not articles, but like a couple of things of news that were from this week. So anyway, let's get into it. This is completely off topic, but trust me, this will get into something in a bit. But recently, I have been in a really big like gangster movie kick where I'll watch shows about the mob or movies about the mob, and I've been just going through this weird kick where I've been playing all the mafia games too. So it's just I've been going through a complete like uh 1930s or like just Italian gangster type of thing. And I started watching The Sopranos and stuff. So, I absolutely love The Sopranos. I'm getting really big into it. But trust me, this is transitioning into something. So I've also been getting into mafia history. People like Frank Sheeran, Joe Colombo, Big mafia crime families, the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, stuff like that. And everybody knows one of the biggest and most famous gangsters ever, not Al Capone, but none other than Teflon Don, John Gotti. They also know his son, John Gotti Jr. John Gotti was the big New York crime boss who pretty much ran the entire fucking city. There was a huge investigation on him. He's been the topic of a lot of gangster movies as well, and a lot of novels and stuff like that, and just a lot of inspiration for a lot of mafia related things. So that being said, there is something that I wanted to talk about in the MMA world that I don't think any of you would have known. Maybe not even some of the most hardcore fans would have known. John Gotti has a grandson who's fighting in professional MMA, and he's not some bum. He's not some shitty fighter. He hasn't been facing cans. Well, I guess kind of not. But he's been facing some okay competition. His name is John Gotti III. Of course it is. And he recently made his UFC Fight Pass debut in January of this year on CES 60. And he did really good. He actually fought his way to a decision and continued his undefeated record to 5-0. And he was in the eyes of the UFC for a while. Mainly, that's one of the reasons why he got signed to CES, was so he can kind of like show on UFC Fight Pass, a lot more eyes under the UFC brass and all that. And, there might have been a potential UFC contract in his future. A couple more fights, might get a contender fight after those couple more fights. So he had another fight this week at CES 61 on, I believe, Thursday, might have been Wednesday. And he was main eventing the event. He was the highlight, the fucking headliner. And he was going up against Bellator veteran Nick Alley. And this guy, he's got an okay record. He's 5-3 going into this contest. He was on a 3-fight skid, but as soon as he beat that skid, he was on a 2-fight skid, or 2-fight win streak, not skid, leading into this fight. And so it was going to be a good challenge for John Gotti. And I was just surprised to see him headline the card, but this was going to be a great showcase for John Gotti. It was supposed to be a good test. He's the main event on Fight Pass for a bunch of MMA fans around the world to be watching, including myself. Plus, he's got all this name brand behind him where he is the son of John Gotti Jr. His grandfather is John Gotti. I think he's the son of John Gotti Jr. He might be the son of somebody else that's a Gotti, but his grandfather is the John Gotti, Teflon Don, and he's been kind of riding those coattails. He's been riding that name value. So he made his CES main event debut, and it went okay, actually. He went against a veteran in Nick Alley, and it was a closely contested fight. John Gotti showcased some good striking, but because Nick Alley is a well-known submission specialist among more hardcore fans, that's why he's a veteran in the game. He's got 5 submissions, all 5 of his wins by submission, right? So he was more than comfortable doing this game. He would pressure John Gotti to the point where John Gotti would go for takedowns, because that's the thing. John Gotti's not only good with his boxing, but he's got good wrestling as well. But the problem was Nick Alley is comfortable in this position. There are some BJJ fighters that will accept a takedown because they're more comfortable off their back, and it's dangerous. You'll get caught in an armbar when you're on top of them raining down shots, or you're trying to transition, and meanwhile you're trying to transition, he's sneaking his legs up your back, and next thing you know, he's got you in a triangle, which almost happened to John Gotti. So it was a closely contested fight. John Gotti won the first round, but the second round, Nick Alley started getting his tempo going, and he started pressuring John Gotti against the cage, forcing John Gotti back to taking Nick Alley down, which didn't last long. It wasn't a dominant position. Nick Alley ended up securing the dominant position and ended up finishing the second round in that dominant position. And here's the thing. Like I said, I think a couple podcasts ago, Bellator has this weird thing where it's 3-round main events. and CES does too. And I think LFA also does. Pretty much anybody but the UFC, I think, has 3-round main events that are not title fights. If it's a title fight, it's 5 rounds. But otherwise, no, you can go fuck yourself. So we were going into the 3rd round, it's tied, and Nick Alley just started churning up the heat. It was a complete Nick Alley round from there on out. He started pressuring John Gotti completely against the cage. He scored the takedown and had the dominant position the whole time as they were kind of scrambling on the ground. He almost had John Gotti in a triangle, and John Gotti just luckily got out of that. But yeah, it was all Nick Alley's round, and he ended up securing the win against John Gotti. But it was a closely contested fight by John Gotti. You know, he needs some work, but he's definitely a good fighter, like definitely one to watch. And I'm going to be keeping my eye on him whenever he comes back and everything. But I was just really surprised to see that there was a John Gotti fighting in MMA, and he was actually surprisingly okay. But yeah, that's it for my Mafia talk. I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was really cool that John Gotti's fucking grandson is fighting in MMA, and he's got a really good record. He's 5-1 now after that loss, but still, 5-1's not something to shake your head at. He was on a 5-fight win streak before that, so that's pretty damn good in my opinion. Anyway, we'll get on to the next bit of news. One of my favorite fighters, Devin Clark, gets a huge fight finally. So he's scheduled to fight on the last November card for the UFC. And he got a huge fight in Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith is the guy who got fucking pummeled by Glover Teixeira and Alexander Rakic. But before then, he challenged Jon Jones for the title. He was on an incredible win streak before that. He beat the likes of Shogun and people all the same. And he was showing to be a much more improved fighter. Now, obviously, I don't know what's been happening recently with him, but ever since the Jon Jones fight, something changed. He's just a completely different person now. I mean, he did get that win against Gustafsson, which was pretty impressive, but after that, it's just been a 2-fight skid where both fights have shown that he is aging and he needs to soon hang up the gloves or figure something out. He's also an analyst for the UFC, so he could possibly just do that job and retire, but I don't want to see Anthony Smith retire. He's just got this huge resurgence in his career. It's like the Michael Bisping story, and I like it, and I want to see him go far. But Devin Clark draws him in the last UFC event on November 28th. Not the last UFC event of the year, but just the last UFC event in November. And I personally think that Devin Clark might get the win. I don't think it's a main event fight. There was nothing in the article that stated that it was a main event fight, so I'm assuming it's going to be either a co-main event or a main card fight or something. It's going to be 3 rounds, which might actually benefit Anthony Smith because he's been in pretty much nothing but 5-round fights for the last couple fights. He's been fighting main events way before he fought Jon Jones. Then he had that 5-round fight with Jon Jones. And then I think the Gustafsson one was 3 rounds, but then he was back to a 5-round fight with Teixeira and then another 5-round fight with Rakic. So this might benefit Anthony Smith because it's a shorter fight. He might be able to implement a different game plan where he could utilize his stamina accordingly and not have to preserve it. But Devin Clark, he's been fighting 3-round fights since he got into the UFC, so he's going to be more used to that. Not like training for a 5-round fight would make it different. It would just make you more, more better with cardio, I guess, because you're training for a much longer fight. So you're either training to preserve it or you're training to, use the same type of stamina, but you're training to last longer. Right? You're training your body to last longer, your oxygen to last more. So I don't know how this will go, but I think Devin Clark might win it. Based on what I've seen with Anthony Smith and how he's been performing in his last few fights, I kind of think that this might be Devin Clark victory, but this is definitely a big fight for Devin Clark. It's going to get him up there in the conversation. If he beats Anthony Smith, he's going to be in the top 15, at least top 10. But I definitely do think that this might be a final fight for Anthony Smith. I would like to see Anthony Smith get the win, but I don't with the way he's been performing in his last couple fights, I don't see how he's going to see it. But speaking of last night, my favorite hype train ever, Khamzat Chimaev, he was spotted at the fights, just chilling with Dana, watching the fights, and he looked happy as hell. And I just got to say, that is a fucking vibe. But that's all I wanted to say about that. Speaking of Chimaev, he's been speaking about a couple of fights that he wants. Obviously, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's been well known in the MMA community. He's been calling this guy out for a while, Damian Maia, which is a good matchup for him grappling wise, but an easy matchup stand up because Maia's not a good stand up artist. And Chimaev has showed that he's got power and he's got great boxing. Plus, he's great at wrestling, great submissions. But there was another one that was calling him out, Darren Till. Now, I don't know how this fight would go. If it's going to be a stand up, because remember, every fight starts standing. I think Till might get the better of the exchanges. But the thing is, like I just said, Chimaev is a great grappler too. And Darren Till has shown to have a little bit of a weakness to people who are grapplers. And he's shown to kind of have a bit of a weakness against people who've got power. Now, I don't know if this is going to be at welterweight or middleweight. I'd assume it'd be middleweight. So maybe Darren Till has a better chance because he's shown that he's got better cardio at 185. He's got a chin at 185. It just seems to be the weight he should have been fighting at all along. But Khamzat has shown to be just an absolute killer at both weights. He's had 2 fights at middleweight in the UFC and 1 fight at welterweight, and all 3 fights have ended within the first 2 minutes of the first round. And one of them was against a really veteranized opponent and like a very skilled opponent in Gerald Meerschaert. And he just put Gerald Meerschaert away with the first punch he threw. So, that would be a fun fight. I would love to see Maia just for the grappling, but Darren Till would be an interesting one because Darren Till's got okay grappling defense. Middleweight seems to be his home. He's got power. He's got great kickboxing. He's an incredible kickboxer, in my opinion. No Israel Adesanya, but he's up there. I love Darren Till and his striking. So I think that would be the better matchup, but it seems to be what Chimaev has been saying is he's not interested in the Till matchup. He's more interested in the Maia matchup. So we'll see what happens there. We might get a Maia matchup at welterweight, or we might get a Darren Till matchup at middleweight. So we'll just have to keep our eye on that situation and just kind of see what's going on there. But that's just the end of the Chimaev train for now. But I'm sure that won't be the end of it because he's just been taking up the news lately, like just blowing up a storm. He's been offering to fight Conor McGregor. He's literally in Fight Island right now as like a standby for some of the middleweight and welterweight fights because he's just waiting to get a fight. He wants a fight. This guy's just been taking up all the spotlight and he's not even annoying about it. I love it. It's his fans that are annoying. He himself is a good guy. Like I love him. So I'm excited to see where Chimaev is going to go. And I'd love to see the Maia matchup, but I definitely would love to see him share the cage at middleweight against Darren Till. Next up is a big one. Jon Jones. So there's been this rumor with Jon Jones for a long time now that during one of USADA's tests, he hid under the gym cage, like underneath that where they store all the equipment and stuff. He hid under the cage, away from USADA, away from a drug test. Nobody knew if it was true or not. Nobody even knew why, whether he might have popped and he was worried that he was going to, piss hot or something, or if it was just a rumor. We didn't know. Well, this week, I think it was like Monday or Tuesday, we got a confirmation. Ladies and gentlemen, Izzy got him. Jon Jones admitted to Israel Adesanya via a quote reply tweet that he hid under the cage. In fact, that it was true. Now, people are thinking it was because of steroids, but the excuse that Jon Jones had was, I was smoking a joint, or I just smoked a joint or a blunt, and I didn't want to piss hot for weed. Now, that would be an understandable excuse because there's been, even as recent as a couple days or at least a week ago, there's been fighters that have been pissing hot for weed, which in my opinion is not a performance enhancing drug. If anything, it kind of dehances your performance and makes you lazier, looser, like it kind of more anxious depending on what type of high you get. So he said that it was because of weed, but Dana White just came out recently as I think like a couple days ago, like 3 days ago, 2 days ago, and said that I don't think it was USADA. I think it was another drug testing company. But he said at that time that the drug testing company that was testing the fighters didn't test for weed, so he shouldn't have had to hide under the cage. So I don't know what's going on there. Did Jon Jones just fucking out himself? Like, I don't know what's going on. But speaking of Jon Jones and Israel Adesanya, that fight seems to be going places. Now, it just seems to be still in talks right now, but he talked, like, Israel Adesanya talked to Ariel Helwani recently, and he confirmed that he does have a date in mind. He wants to fight Jon Jones in 2021, and he's eyeing International Fight Week 2021, which is July, like midweek July. It usually is like a big pay-per-view, and then the day before, or I think the day before, sometimes they'll do a fight night. So I'm assuming that he's trying to eye the pay-per-view for International Fight Week 2021. But the thing is, there's been a lot of trash talk between the guys. Like, they've been shit talking each other's skills. Jon Jones has been shit talking Izzy's dad, saying Izzy listens to his dad for everything. And I'm sure your dad has got the plan to beat me. And then Izzy took offense to that and went a little too far, in my opinion, and brought up Jon's dead mother. And it just blew up from there. Jon Jones has just been kind of fucking with fans on Twitter too, but a lot of the talks between Izzy and Jones, it's been a lot of shit talk on social media. And if this fight does happen, there's going to be a lot of hype behind it. One, it's Jon Jones. He's coming back down to light heavyweight, not even to challenge for a title. He's just going to do a 5-round main event against Israel Adesanya just because he wants to prove himself, because now this cocky Australian or New Zealand guy is talking so much shit about him, and he wants to prove himself. And then here we got Israel Adesanya, this old breed, or the starting to become old breed, is still talking shit like he's hot shit, and he wants to prove that he's going to become the GOAT in this sport. So both guys got so much to prove. They've been talking so much fucking shit. So much shit. I want to see this fight happen. It seems like it might happen. There's still no confirmed contracts yet, but it's still in talks. Izzy's eyeing a date. Jon Jones doesn't seem to be either for or against it. He's just kind of egging it on. I don't know if he's doing it for attention or if he really wants to fight, but right now he's still trying to eye a fight at heavyweight, maybe get him to fight one fight at heavyweight so he gets that done, and then go back down to light heavyweight to just fight Izzy if he wants to. But yeah, no, this fight seems to be getting a little closer and closer to happening each day. And now we've got a somewhat of a date to expect, International Fight Week of 2021. So it's going to be, I think, first or second week of July of that. So maybe we'll see that on the pay-per-view. I don't know. I hope so. Anyway, speaking of super fights, we got another super fight that has been announced for UFC 257, possibly. It's sometime, I think it's January 23rd of 2021. So assuming that's going to be the pay-per-view, that'll probably be 257. We have Conor McGregor returning since his fight against Donald Cerrone in January of 2020 against a man he decimated at featherweight. And since then, that man that he decimated has been looking so goddamn good, so patient, a much more improved fighter, much more rounded. And it's been confirmed that these two guys are going for a rematch finally, but at welterweight. I don't care. I want to see that shit happen. The thing that's going to bother me about it is the potential, Conor gets the lightweight title shot if he wins despite like fighting at 170. It's like, no, that should not count. So I hope that's not one of the one of the things that both like either guy get. I mean, I love Dustin Poirier. I'd love to see him get another title shot, but if, like I said, if it's at welterweight, it just doesn't make any sense. But that has been confirmed for January 23rd, 2021. I believe the contracts have been signed. They've been talking about it all week. So Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 2 is going to be happening. We don't know where yet, but we definitely know it's happening January 23rd. Conor's been talking about how he signed the contract. Dustin's been talking about the fight too. So I don't know. Everything seems to be pointing towards it's confirmed. But getting to the last actual confirmed bout. So I was talking about Aljo last week and how we don't know if he's going to get a title shot or not. Well, I'm pretty sure every other MMA fan had the same idea as me and was bitching about it because Aljo finally got his title shot at UFC 256. Aljamain Sterling, the man who handily submitted Corey Sandhagen, the guy who just decimated Marlon Moraes, he finally gets his title shot against Petr Yan, the bantamweight champion who decimated Aldo for the belt in July. I think it was July. So what are we gonna see here? Uh, I don't know what we're gonna end up getting. Aljo's an incredible grappler. I don't know who's gonna end up winning. Petr Yan's got good wrestling, but his boxing is to die for. But like I said, Aljo is just an incredible grappler on the ground. I don't know much about Aljo's wrestling. I think his wrestling's pretty decent, but I know his jiu-jitsu, his submission game is incredible. He can lock in a submission from about anywhere, and it's so quick. Like you just don't see it coming. So this is going to be definitely a fun fight. I'm happy that Aljo gets his title shot finally. He's definitely deserved this. He's been on a nice winning streak since his loss to Marlon Moraes, especially that really quick submission of Corey Sandhagen. He handily beat Corey Sandhagen, who just handily beat the guy who knocked him out. So it's an interesting time in the bantamweight division right now. I'm happy that Aljo finally gets his title shot. My God, it's been a long time coming. That means that we might get. I would like to see Sandhagen versus Aldo. As stupid as that sounds, or maybe Moraes versus Aldo too, because a lot of people thought that Aldo won that fight, and I do too. So those fights could happen. Like in the meanwhile, if either of those guys want to fight in 2020 again, I don't know much about Moraes. Maybe Moraes has to take some time off after the knockout. I heard on Ariel Helwani's show that Corey Sandhagen has to take, I think, like 3 months off for a medical suspension just because of like something about his eye or something like that. But he said after that he should be willing to go. He wants another fight. He wants to get back in there. I'm excited to see Corey Sandhagen get back in there, but I just want to see Aldo fight again. I'm excited to see this Aljo title shot though. So that'll be happening, I believe, the end of December. That'll be the last card of the year, I believe, the last pay-per-view of the year that we'll be getting, which is UFC 256. Now, I believe that is the main event. I could be wrong. That might be the co-main event, but either way, that has been officially confirmed for UFC 256. I'm so happy for Aljo, and my God, man. I guess that's it for the first half of the podcast. I just want to talk about one more thing before I get to the next part of the podcast, the whole main card, the meat and potatoes, the reason why you guys are here. There was a Nurmagomedov, no relation to Khabib, who fought last night on the card and might be a future champion with the way he's fighting. He absolutely put his opponent away in just a couple seconds with a nice like counter left hook as he was backing up, hit him, dropped him with that left hook. It was so quick too. It didn't even look like a left hook. It looked more like a left jab, but like once you saw it in slow motion, you could see the hook. He dropped him immediately and then just started unloading on him, just eating him up. And within a matter of seconds, I think it was like 50 seconds, 51 seconds, done. It was over. So definitely a fighter to watch. He's at bantamweight, I believe. So like I said, maybe a future champion, not anytime soon. He's just starting his career out here in the UFC, but definitely one to watch. My God, he was very, soft spoken too, wasn't very, hype about it. So like I said, definitely one to watch because he's not going to be making waves for himself verbal wise. Going to be more like showing his performance. And I'm excited to see where he ends up. I'd like to see him against a couple more prospects that come into the UFC and everything, and see if he can hang against the actual good guys soon. But yeah, no, I'm excited to see another Nurmagomedov, even if he's not related to Khabib. He's still, I think, Dagestani, and he's incredibly good. His skills have shown. So, and it's quite scary how soft-spoken he is. That's why I'm also so interested. So anyway, I just want to talk about him real quick because that was such an incredible finish. That was either going to win KO of the night or what we're going to be talking about next in the main card. But anyway, I will see you guys in the second half of the podcast. We'll be talking about the main card. We'll be getting into the meat and the potatoes of the main card, but I'll probably be just quickly going through most of the main card because I want to talk about the main event and the whole story behind the main event and everything that led up to the main event. It's incredible. And this could have very well been a pay-per-view fight had it been for a title with the story behind it and the hype behind it. And it was a really hyped up fight night, a really incredible fight night. If there was fans in attendance, it would have been sold out, would have been a huge packed arena. This fight was definitely 2 years in the making, so hyped, and it definitely delivered. So I'll be talking about the story behind that next. So I'll see you guys in the second half. All right, so this main card, it's not the best name wise, but like I said, the main event is the real meat and potatoes. But the main card delivered all night. They were great, fun fights. And then the last three, well, not three because the main event didn't end up in a KO, but the two fights before the main event ended in a KO, and they were both pretty emphatic, pretty exciting fights, pretty exciting finishes. So I guess let's get into it. So the first fight on the card was a featherweight bout between bantamweight veteran and now featherweight standout, I guess, Thomas Almeida. He finally made his return after a little bit. I can't remember what his fucking last fight was, but he was up against Jonathan Martinez, more of a newcomer to the UFC. And when I was looking at this fight on paper before the fight started, I kind of thought that Thomas Almeida was going to have the advantage. They're about the same height. He had the reach advantage, and he was the more experienced one. So I thought, he's going to be stronger at featherweight than he was at bantamweight. He's more experienced. He's going to put the hurt on Jonathan Martinez. And, like I said, looking at it on paper, that's what one would think. That's immediately what, one would probably assume. That was wrong of me to assume. And this is the reason why I love this sport. It's because you can't look at these bouts on paper. Like, you can and make your decisions based on that. But in this sport, anything can happen. These aren't guys padding their records. They're equally tough guys where one shot could end it. One wrong move could put you in a submission. One little takedown could score the points in your direction. Like, anything could happen in this sport, and I fucking love it for that reason. And that's exactly what fucking happened. Thomas Almeida started the fight coming out pretty aggressive. I thought he did pretty damn good. Some people thought the first round was Martinez's round, but I thought Thomas Almeida did enough. He was coming forward, landing some more clean shots, despite Martinez hitting some really good counter shots and, kind of pushing the pace a tiny bit too. Thomas Almeida also got that takedown and I thought that was his round, man. I thought he did enough, even though Jonathan Martinez ended the round dominantly, I believe. I thought that was Thomas Almeida's round. So, in my belief, Thomas Almeida was going into the second round 1-0, and all of a sudden, Jonathan Martinez started picking it up. He was pushing the pace, getting some nice, clean shots. He was hitting Almeida hard with some shots. Pushing the pace, pushing him against the cage, just bullying him pretty much the whole time. And I think it was near the end of the second round, he hit Almeida with a nice 1-2 combination that hurt Almeida, and it looked like he was about to finish the fight. But Almeida just has a chin on him, had heart, and just stayed in the fight. He knew what he was doing. But Jonathan Martinez started picking it up at the second round. And then all of a sudden in the third round, it was the same story. Jonathan Martinez was still in his feels, feeling all confident, bouncing around, hitting Thomas Almeida with some nice shots. Once again, He drops Thomas Almeida just like a flash knockdown and hurts him again, almost finishes him. Thomas Almeida's just eating these shots, trying to get himself back into the fight. And Jonathan Martinez takes him down, wins the round. We go to the judges' scorecards. I mean, I guess the judges didn't see it the same way I did the first round, but 30-27 all around the board, Jonathan Martinez. It was such an incredible showing by Jonathan Martinez. I don't know where Thomas Almeida is going to go after this. I want to see him fight some more because he doesn't look shot. He looked pretty good in that fight. It's just Jonathan Martinez showed up. He just looked so good. I can't wait to see more fights with him in the featherweight division. I'm definitely going to keep my eye on him. I didn't know too much about him coming into this, but he definitely piqued my interest. I definitely became a fan because his intensity, he's just a humble guy. I like his fight style because he's very patient, but his boxing is very fluid. He hits hard. He mixes his clinch and his takedowns up very well. He's seems to be very well rounded. Obviously, he can still improve. That's what every fighter can do, but he seems to be very well rounded, and I can see him going far. I want to see him fight some more, get that record up, improve some more. I think Jonathan Martinez could become a top 15 guy soon. I think he could probably get up there. He's looking really good, and he's been looking really good in his last few fights. Obviously, I believe he lost his first fight via a split decision, I believe. Second fight, he looked incredible against Frankie Sands. And this fight, he looked incredible. He just pieced Thomas Almeida down, played his game, made Thomas Almeida play his game too, and just did an incredible job just beating him down. And that brings us into the next one because another one I actually didn't expect to win, despite it being more experienced guy. The second fight on the card was a welterweight bout between Claudio Silva and James Krauss, who is an absolute veteran in this game. He's also a head coach to some of the fighters. He's cornered a lot of guys too. Like, he's very knowledgeable in this game, but he's starting to get up there. And I thought Claudio Silva was going to win, but going into this fight, I was wrong. And James Krauss showed me up. He was playing a very smart game from the get-go, just kind of keeping his distance, using his takedowns very well. It was like Claudio Silva couldn't do anything. James Krauss is just very comfortable on the ground. Claudio Silva did a really good job picking away at James Krauss's legs at one point. In the first round, he dropped James Krauss. It was the first or second round, he dropped James Krauss, and James Krauss landed on his leg or knee wrong and hurt himself. And it was clear he tore something because when he got back up to his feet real quick, you could tell his knee was very unstable. So Claudio Silva was doing a very good game plan at just chipping away at those legs, but he just had no answer to those takedowns every time James Krauss would get him down. Obviously, he would get back up shortly after, but James Krauss would do just enough and dominate just enough to score the round towards himself. And then, since his knee was torn, that was probably the best game plan James Krauss could do. He did it again in the third round. He just, with his wobbly ass knee, just kept his distance, tried to stay out of the shot, like the knee shots every now and then, because, every kick would go to his fucking calf or behind his knee or whatever, and he would try to avoid those. Then he'd close the distance, get into a clinch distance, take him to the ground, and it would be a ground game for a little bit, get back up, and then do it all over again. Both guys were tired at this point, though. It's welterweight. You've got quite a bit of weight on you. And, that's definitely hard to do. James Krauss is moving more slow now because of his knee. He's got to use all that power to take Buddy down and keep him down. And then there's Claudio Silva. He's just bouncing around trying to then dynamically strike. And then on the meanwhile, he's got to block these takedowns. He's got to use all of his strength to keep him from taking him down. And when he's on the ground, he's got to use all of his strength to get back up. So it's like, these guys were exhausted at the end of it, but James Krauss fought a very, very smart fight, in my opinion. For the game plan that he had initially, he just stuck by it. And he did an incredible job sticking by it. So honestly, all hats go off to him. He did a great job in his fight. So anyway, we're going on to the third fight, which is a fun fight I wanted to get into. we have Jimmy Crute versus Modestus Bukaki. I guess. And he he was going to be the favorite going into this. But yeah, then we have Jimmy Crute coming in here off of an incredible win streak. A lot of them were submissions. He had a lot of Kimura wins against some top guys. He beat Paul Craig and like some other dudes too, and he's been looking really good. But Bukakus was just looking very explosive in his last two fights and just looked like an incredible prospect. But this fight didn't last long. You know how I said earlier that this was one of the two fights on the main card that ended via KO? It was awesome. Both guys brought it in the very first round alone. Jimmy Crute was kind of holding the center, cutting off all angles and shit. And next thing you know, Modestus Bukakus is just hitting him with some body shots, trying to push him back. And he does. He starts pushing him back, and Jimmy Crute hits him with like a right hook or something, and then hurts Bukakus. Bukakus drops to his knees and tries to get back up. So as he's getting back up and retreating, Jimmy Crute's chasing him down and hitting him with these little tiny like chipping shots, and then pins him against the cage, and then starts throwing some heavy hands and knocks him flat against the cage like he's out cold at this point. And I didn't expect that from Jimmy Crute. I'm not going to lie. On my verdict, I had Jimmy Crute winning by submission. Never in my life did I see Jimmy Crute winning via fucking KO. It was awesome, and it was a great show out by Jimmy Crute. I cannot wait to see where he goes in the light heavyweight division. Just yet another fucking prospect in the light heavyweight division that's going to make things interesting. My God, it was a brutal knockout. Everybody was talking about it. And the thing that I liked the most about the knockout was how respectful that Jimmy Crute was. Jimmy Crute was so respectful right after the KO. He knocked the fucking guy out, got up as he was being waved off, and then turned back around, sat down against the cage with him, put his arm around him, and made sure he was okay, until the guy's team tried to come into the cage, and it turned out that Jimmy Crute was leaning against the door, so he had to get up. But I thought that was the nicest shit ever. Jimmy Crute just absolutely violated this guy and murdered him, and then decided, yeah, I'm going to be a nice guy and I'm going to sit down by him. So it was awesome. It was just a great fight altogether. And that was getting everybody hyped for the co-main event. And not a lot of people like women's MMA, but I do. And this was really exciting for me because we had the number one contender at flyweight, Caitlin Chukagian, the lady who put a pretty good fucking offense up against Val until she got TKO'd, against Jessica Andrade, who was making her flyweight debut. She is, I think, one of the first or only female fighters to fight at 3 weight divisions not simultaneously, but like one after another. She originally fought at bantamweight before they brought the fucking strawweight division in. She fought at strawweight. She was really strong for a strawweight. And she ended up actually capturing the women's strawweight title last year against Rose Namajunas in kind of a fluke knockout, in my opinion, because she slammed Rose on her neck. But nonetheless, it showed how strong Jessica Andrade was. She did it again against Weili Zhang before she got knocked out. She was probably one of the better strawweights. She was easily a top 3 contender for a very long while at strawweight. So she was finally making her women's flyweight debut last night. And Caitlin Chukagian isn't a short lady. Jessica Andrade is. Jessica Andrade's 5'1", 5'2". She's my height. Caitlin Chukagian's 5'7", 5'8". She's tall. She's tall for a She's kind of tall for a flyweight. Definitely fucking tall for fighting a strawweight and bantamweight. That's 5'1". But nonetheless, Jessica Andrade didn't let that fucking deter her. She wanted that number 1 spot by her name when she was coming into this division, so she took this goddamn fight. And she was determined to come into this queen's castle and slaughter her in front of her peasants, and that's exactly what she did. Don't get me wrong. Caitlin Chukagian put on a good fight. Played her fight very well, used her takedowns. Jessica Andrade did really good defending them, though. Caitlin Chukagian did really good pushing her against the fence. But See, that's the thing. Jessica Andrade, that's her fighting style because she's short. She's really used to the dirty boxing. So she was more than happy to close the clinch so she would reverse against the cage and start eating her with some shots. What Chukagian had to do was kind of use her distance and use takedowns. But instead, she was more so closing the distance with Andrade, and Andrade was doing a good job keeping that distance. And like I said before, Jessica Andrade is strong. And when you get Jessica Andrade's arm, you better hope to God that you can snap that thing and she screams before she slams you, because she'll pick you up, she'll slam you, and you'll end up knocked out or you'll lose it. And then next thing you know, she's on top of you, beating the fuck out of you because you're like, whoa, what happened? So Jessica Andrade just was showing her skill set last night. She slammed Caitlin Chukagian to the mat several times. Caitlin Chukagian almost had her in an armbar. She slammed Caitlin Chukagian then too with no fucks given, and it was awesome. She hit Caitlin Chukagian with some really hard shots, but what it all led up to was a very pretty much last second finish of the first round by Jessica Andrade, where she was being backed up against the cage, and Caitlin Chukagian was trying to cut it off for her, and Andrade hits her with a body shot. And even in the picture of after the body shot, you can see Chukagian's reaction. It hurt her bad. I don't know if she broke something or if it was just the fact it was a liver shot. So those hurt. Those will shut you down. So I don't know if it was one of those, but it hurt her. And the thing that I respect the most is Jessica Andrade is usually a headhunter. She loves going for those knockouts, but she didn't do that this time. She noticed something that was hurt in Caitlin Chukagian and went right after it. She waited patiently, pushed her against the fence, chose her shots, and especially when she had her against the fence, started unloading those shots, and all of them were to the body. You could tell it folded Caitlin Chukagian like a lawn chair after like the second or third one that landed against the cage. You just see Chukagian fall forward, and she's like keeled over, man. It hurt her. It hurt her bad. And it just shows how fucking strong Jessica Andrade is. She's definitely going to be a contender at flyweight. Whether she's going to be a problem for Val or not is a different story. A lot of people are saying no, and I kind of think she's not going to be. But she's probably going to be the best fight that Val has had yet. With Valentina Shevchenko as the fucking champ, I don't think anyone's going to be a champ for a while. What this fucking division needs, though, this division needs more contenders, better contenders. Contenders that are more around Val's level, and Jessica Andrade is there. Now, is it an easy win for Val? Nah. But is it a guaranteed win for Val? Probably, because like I said, Valentina Shevchenko is just on a fucking whole new level compared to these women. But I'm excited to see that fight happen. I could see it happening after, I think the next fight for Shevchenko is Jennifer Maia or something like that. But yeah, I cannot wait to see Andrade go up against her next. Obviously, I think Andrade's going to probably go up against a couple more contenders in the time being. But that being said, I'm excited to see what's next for Andrade, because she just fucking put her claim to the flyweight division and she called out Val too. This isn't me just matchmaking. She said that she wanted Valentina next. She thought she would be a problem to Valentina. So that fight definitely interests me. It's probably the only women's flyweight title fight that actually interests me. People are going to be like, what about the Jennifer Maia fight? No, she may have handily fucking submitted JoJo or knocked out JoJo Calderwood or whatever, but I don't think she's nowhere near Valentina Shevchenko's level. I love JoJo, but that just shows that JoJo was nowhere near Valentina's level either. So I don't think that's going to be a fucking hard win for Val. It's going to be an easy win. Andrade, on the other hand, might be a fun fight because she's definitely a nice dynamic striker. She hits hard. She's got great takedown defense. She's going to be definitely a problem for Val, but I think Val still wins it. I'm sorry, but that's just it. But that's it for the main card. We're going into the main event now, and I said I was going to gloss over these fast because there's a reason why I was really hyped for this main event. The story behind it. Let's get to the beginning. December of 2018, Brian Ortega goes up against Max Holloway and gets utterly decimated by Max. in a very contested fight, but just in a fight that he just ate way too many shots, and it was clear that Max was just bullying him. And after that, no word from Brian Ortega. It wasn't until I think mid 2019 when he got scheduled against the Korean Zombie for the first time. It was supposed to be scheduled for sometime in like July or August or maybe later than that. But after that, unfortunately, he had to pull out, or Brian Ortega had to pull out due to surgeries and stuff. And that's understandable. You know, you get injuries, fighters need surgeries, physiotherapy, and all that. That's understandable. But suddenly, we have a little situation go on the Ariel Helwani show before it became DC and Helwani. There was an interview with the Korean Zombie and his translator, K-Rap star J Park or something like that. And he was translating for the Korean Zombie because Korean Zombie he's not a native English speaker. He doesn't speak English at all. He has not spoken a word of English. He is Korean. So his translator was translating stuff for him and said that essentially what the Korean Zombie says was that Brian Ortega was scared. He pulled out because he was scared to fight him. Well, turns out Brian Ortega didn't like that and started talking shit to Jay Park on social media, saying he was going to slap Jay Park like a little bitch the next time he saw him, that next time he sees Jay Park, it's on fucking sight, shit like that. We all just kind of laughed at it. That was until it was supposed to be scheduled for December of 2019, I remember, because that was when Brian Ortega was ready to come back from his surgeries and all that. Unfortunately, the Korean Zombie has to get eye surgery, right? But back to Jay Park, because this is the reason why the whole beef and the fight became a boil, was because at UFC 248, the last fight with fans in attendance, the last pay-per-view with fans in attendance, Brian Ortega waited for TKZ to get up and go to the bathroom and leave Jay Park alone. And then Brian Ortega walks up with his posse to Jay Park and fucking slaps Jay Park like a bitch. Waits for TKZ to leave and then slaps Jay Park like a fucking bitch. So everyone on social media turned against Brian Ortega. Everyone was laughing at him. It became this huge thing, and it's become a huge beef between the two. TKZ said he was going to fucking decimate Ortega for Jay Park. Ortega reaffirms that it was all Jay Park and he fucking did what he had to do and it was gangsta shit, which I don't think slapping a civilian as your professional fighter when his professional fighter guy leaves is a fucking gangster move. You do it in front of the fucking professional fighter. But that being said, that's what led up to this whole beef. So this had been on and off for a while now, a fight that we had all been excited to see. And then on top of that, this beef that just started because Jay Park translated some shit, just it heightened it to new heights and it became its own thing. And we finally got it last night and it delivered, and not in the way that I thought it would. I don't know what the fuck lab Brian Ortega went to. I don't know where the fuck he went to. That fucking man went from fight IQ retarded to fight IQ genius in just 2 years. This was a completely rejuvenated and brand new Brian Ortega coming into this fight. In TKZ, a guy who just has never gone to decision in his life. He's a finish machine, a performance bonus machine, and he just looks better and better each fight. Brian Ortega made him look gun shy. He made him look gun shy. Brian Ortega played such a good fight. His striking looked way more improved than when he looked in the Max Holloway fight. He cut the cage off so well, used his distance, and just kept Zombie on the fucking offensive, but was doing really good at countering shots and slipping out of the way and making Zombie miss. And he hurt Zombie at the end of the first round, which prompted Zombie to kind of get a little bit more, in your face, more prompt like, I need to finish this guy. So in the second round, Zombie's coming out very aggressive like, and he's hitting Brian Ortega with some nice shots, but Brian Ortega's slipping most of them, backing up. He's pinning Brian Ortega against the cage. And then Brian Ortega hits him with like a spinning elbow, almost similar to the Yair Rodriguez elbow that knocked out TKZ in the very last second of their fight in 2018, and dropped TKZ, but TKZ got back up, kind of snapped out of it and tried to get his mind back into the game. And just, how I said Brian Ortega made him look gun shy? This was the moment where he really started to look gun shy. He just didn't throw nearly as much. He was on the offensive, but only as far as movement. It was Brian Ortega chipping him with the shots, doing most of the striking, hitting him with the clean shots. He even threw some takedowns here and there. He didn't take down TKZ most of the time, but every time he did get TKZ down, it was pretty dominant until TKZ got back up. And he just, after that elbow, he made TKZ look like a completely different person. And last night, Ortega looked so complete as a fighter. And this might be controversial to say, but if this Brian Ortega showed up against Max Holloway, I think he probably could have had a chance. It would have been a close split decision victory for either him or Max. I feel like if this Brian Ortega showed up in 2018, he would have been the featherweight champion. I don't know if he would have beat Volkanovski, but that's definitely the fight to make next, because all 5 rounds, I had it 4-1 because I think Zombie just edged out the first round despite what happened. But, most people had it 5-0 for Brian Ortega, and so did the judges. Brian Ortega shut out TKZ and made him look gun shy and just made him look like a complete shell of a fighter. And it was an incredible thing to see. As sad as I was, because I wanted the Korean Zombie to win, and I'm a huge Korean Zombie fan, it was incredible to see Brian Ortega like that. I don't know what he was doing in those 2 years, but definitely was not fucking sitting around eating Cheetos fucking Halle Berry, man, because he was training, he was putting in the work, he improved so fucking drastically. Like, it's incredible. But the other story of the night is Brian Ortega schmeat he was packing. What the fuck was up with that? Everybody just went from, wow, bald Brian Ortega is like a mystical goat fighter, to, holy shit, Brian Ortega's bulge. That's why Halle Berry hung around him a lot. Like, it became this huge meme. I don't know what the fuck was going on with Brian Ortega last night. I don't know if that was because it's the first time he's wore tight shorts and that's just how his cup looks, or if that dude really does have schmeat packing, but everybody was focusing on it last night. It was weird. Even people were making jokes saying, like, that's the real reason why Zombie lost. He was focused on that. And, I would not doubt that. He was packing the schmeat last night, apparently. So I want to know why that was the fucking story of the night, and not Baldy Ed gang becoming like the greatest fucking gang of fighters. We have fucking Brian Kelleher, now Brian Ortega, Conor McGregor, and who else was there? I think Dustin Poirier was one of them. Yeah, the Baldy Ed gang, man. It's like a new mystical goat fighter, man. I don't know where bald Brian Ortega is going to go next, but I feel like it might be a Volkanovski fight. And I don't know how that's going to go. Maybe Volkanovski's going to win it, but I just have to say Brian Ortega looks so much better than he did in 2018. He's fighting so much smarter. He's a lot more patient. He's not stupid with his striking. He's very pick and choosy with his strikes and with his moves in general. He's very tactical now. He just looks like a complete fighter now. Obviously, he's still got room to improve, but to say that he's got ring rust or anything, I think he just proved that wrong. I do believe that ring rust is a thing, but everybody was saying that he was going to have ring rust, and he just fucking proved everyone wrong, including me. I thought that TKZ was going to win this easy because I was like, no way. Yeah, Brian Ortega's been training this whole time, but 2 years out of the octagon with all these surgeries, there's no way. There's just no way. Well, apparently there was a way. If there's a will, there's a way, because Brian Ortega shut out TKZ for 5 rounds. So I think the fight to make is definitely Brian Ortega versus Volkanovski. So just so we don't have to see Max versus Volk 3, god damn it, because everybody wants that to fucking happen, and I don't. I do not. Stop giving Max title shots. I like Max. He's one of my favorite fighters, but just stop. He's 2-0 against Volk now, god damn it. Give him a fucking contender finally. You know, you didn't give Robert Whittaker a fucking title shot again because he got knocked out. So come on. Anyway, that's it for this episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. I actually enjoyed this week's event. Oh my God. I cannot wait for next week's event, though. It's UFC 254. It's the great Khabib versus Justin Gaethje, man. It's going to be a fucking fireworks fight. We also got Jared Cannonier on the fucking card against Robert Whittaker in the co-main event. And on top of that, starting up the fucking main card, we have the highly anticipated Ion Kutalaba fight versus Ankalev. That's been rescheduled and fucking scheduled over and over and over again. That fight originally ended in a very controversial TKO finish because apparently, according to fucking Kutalaba, he was playing possum. But I'm excited for that card. I cannot wait to talk about it next week. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will see you guys in the mini and next week. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks.
You've been listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Keep in touch with Dillo on his social media at Dillo Ross on Twitter and Dillo Ross on Instagram.